friends. Welcome to the Creative Impact Podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Caldwell, and I'm so happy you're here. Each episode, I take some time to chat with fellow artists about life, faith, and the impact of the arts.
I think one of the reasons we have to have that positive culture, it doesn't mean it's going to be easy, and it doesn't mean at times we're not going to have adversity and we're going to have some conflict.
Right.
That doesn't mean that. But the positive team culture allows you, when you hit that adversity, not to go into that spiral. Here we go again. We're horrible. We're not going to get over this. And boom, you just kind of go immediately down. The positive culture allows you to hit that adversity, that conflict, that tough time, and look at each other and go, how are we going to get over this? And the mindset alone to have that positive culture, it turns adversity might become pressure, but adversity doesn't turn into stress and anxiety.
Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 78. Today's episode is part 2 of our Positive Team Culture series that's happening all throughout the month of November. I'm so excited for you to get to know our guest today, Rob Miller of Proactive Coaching. Today, we continue to dive into what it looks like to have a healthy and thriving team. And I personally love this topic because I feel like it relates to so many different areas in our lives. As Rob says in today's episode, teams are teams are teams. So no matter what kind of team you're on, whether it's a sports team or a dance team, or just a part of a team at a workplace or in an organization, the same principles apply. You'll hear me introduce Rob and give more of his background as we get into the conversation, and he'll share more about his current work with Proactive Coaching. He's been with them since 2008 and speaks about 120 to 130 days per year. Towards the end of the conversation, you'll get to hear more about Rob's journey as a player and a coach. But towards the beginning, we jump right into some really practical and relevant content. One thing I love about Rob is how he does such a great job of just breaking down practical steps for coaches and leaders to be able to help create this healthy team culture. He talks about 4 key elements of a positive team culture, some warning signs for when the team may not be in a healthy place, how to intentionally develop trust, and how to leverage everyday moments for impact as a leader. This is one of those episodes where you may want to have a notebook and pen handy to write down some of this incredible wisdom that Rob shares with us today. If you're new to the podcast, I invite you to subscribe wherever you happen to be listening so you won't miss any of the episodes in our Positive Team Culture series. Thank you so much for joining us, and enjoy my conversation with Rob Miller. I am so excited to be here today with someone that I look up to as just a team building, leadership development expert in the field, and that is Rob Miller. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's good to be on.
Yes. So I'm just going to give a little bit of background for those that are listening. So Rob was a 3-sport athlete in high school and played NAIA college basketball, where he served as team captain his senior year. He has coached both men and women in high school and college basketball, as well as in track and field. And he's the former director of the Champions of Character for NAIA and the former director for the National Christian College Athletic Association. He is presently the commissioner for the Wolverine Hoosier Athletic Conference. And this is where I met him, is he has been a partner in Proactive Coaching since 2008. So that's kind of where our stories meet, because Rob was speaking for Proactive Coaching at the Texas Dance Educators Association convention here in Houston. I believe you've been doing that for a number of years.
I've had the chance to be there 3 times. Yeah, I've spoke there 3 times now. Yep.
That's great. So it was such a joy just to get to sit in on your workshop at TDEA and hear. I love just the practical nature of what you bring to team building, character development, and really setting the stage for a positive team culture. So yes, just so pumped and excited to have you here today. Thank you for being here, Rob.
Thank you for asking me. It's going to be some fun. And yeah, just teams are teams are teams. It doesn't matter what you're working with. And it's our responsibility as directors and coaches to make sure we're on that right path to developing a team.
Yes, exactly. So I guess before we jump in, is there anything else you wanted to share that I may have missed in the intro?
Nothing in the intro, except I think it's very interesting that, over the last 8 years since the first time I was at TEDA and Cindy Vaughn, another director, brought me in to speak at that.
Yes.
I'd say 20 to 25% of our business at Proactive Coaching, and I speak 120 days a year, has become drill dance teams.
That's amazing.
And think about the explosion of that. And I think that's innate with what you do, because your season is a long season
Right.
with what you have. And when you have that long a season, you got to have a good culture. You have to, because problems will arise, and it'll allow us to get over those problems with a good culture.
Exactly. Yeah. If you're, have a negative culture, that's going to be a tough year
Yes,
because we
that's
really
right.
do start in the summer and go through the end of the school year. It's pretty incredible. So, yeah. So I would love to just give you a moment to share about proactive coaching, a little bit more of what you guys do. So, what is kind of the goal and the vision of proactive coaching?
Our goal is to create cultures and team atmospheres that allow young people and people on teams, no matter the level, to go out and compete fearlessly and confidently.
Love that.
And that's our goal. And that takes an intentionalism. It doesn't just happen, it requires intentionalism. So we have the opportunity, and we were formed by Bruce and Dana Brown, who live up north of Seattle. I live in Kansas City, and we have a few other people on our speaking team. And we were formed probably now going on 25, 26 years ago. And I've been with the company since '08.
That's amazing.
Where we really go out and work with high schools, colleges, youth programs on intentionally working with coaches. We work with athletes. We work with leaders. We work with parents, all about creating that culture that allows that foundation for young people to make the right decision to create ownership in their team and their culture. So we have a wonderful opportunity to travel the country and meet all different teams. And like I've always said, it doesn't matter what your team is. We all deal with the same issues.
Yes, so true.
It doesn't matter the sport, doesn't matter the gender, doesn't matter the age. When it comes down to it, we're all dealing with this like issues. So how can we make sure we learn together?
Love that so much. And that's so perfect for this series that we're doing on the podcast that's all about building positive team culture. And so let's jump right into that. So what do you think is the value of being part of a team? So just like at the basic level.
That's a great question, because I think many of us that have been in the profession a long time say, we learn life skills and we create great relationships, and it's just a great experience for us to learn how to compete. And yet the statistics don't tell us that. Okay. The longer you're in sport, the more reasoning and ethical behavior go down and experiences aren't great. It has to be, like I come back to that word I constantly use, intentionalism.
Yes.
So if we're intentionally about building that culture, then I think that's exactly what happens. Being part of that team allows you to go through learning life lessons, but it provides you with an unbelievable experience where you're learning how to reach potential yourself in whatever your chosen area is.
Right.
And thus that helps the team reach potential. And then when you get down, there's a feeling of accomplishment. Look what we've done. It's the right kind of pride, not the look at me. It's the right kind of pride that says, look what we've accomplished together. And that's a feeling of accomplishment that young people can grab a hold of and use to grow in their life.
Yes, that's so well put. And I love that the way that you're saying it's not going to just naturally happen. We have to work towards that and be intentional. So why do you feel like it matters to really focus in on having a positive team culture? And it's kind of reiterating, I guess, a little bit of what you've said, but.
Well, I think one of the reasons we have to have that positive culture, it doesn't mean it's going to be easy, and it doesn't mean at times we're not going to have adversity and we're going to have some conflict.
Right.
That doesn't mean that. But the positive team culture allows you, when you hit that adversity, not to go into that spiral. Here we go again. We're horrible. We're not going to get over this. And boom, you just kind of go immediately down. The positive culture allows you to hit that adversity, that conflict, that tough time, and look at each other and go, how are we going to get over this? And the mindset alone to have that positive culture, it turns adversity might become pressure, but adversity doesn't turn into stress and anxiety. And I think that's a key element on positive culture.
That is so key. So what do you think are some of the main factors that impact how the team culture comes together, I guess, and what it feels like?
We have four that we kind of boil down to that are the elements of a positive team culture. One is this: the members of the team commit to the team by making positive individual and team choices. Okay?
That's good.
So it's first thing is choices we make. Have we individually made the right choices to commit to this team? And are we willing to commit to the team choices that need to be made?
Right.
And we have to have that ability. And I think as coaches and directors, what we need to make sure we do is clearly identify what those are. One of the things you probably heard me say before, Rachel, is this: we're very good at t-shirt slogans and very bad at action statements.
Yes.
And we need to make sure we clear, because Think about this. If I take 50 kids at any high school and have them sit down and write their definition of the word respect down, how many different definitions of the word respect would we have?
Probably 50.
Yeah. Instead, we got to get on the same page. So we not only have to have young people making great choices, team members making great choices on individual and team commitment, we got to identify what those choices are. The second thing is leadership and ownership. The great Pat Summitt, coach for women's basketball at the University of Tennessee, one of my favorite quotes is this: the greatest weapon we have as coaches is ownership. When our athletes take ownership, it's a great weapon. We need to give them the opportunity to create ownership and leadership. And I think we have to be intentional about creating that leadership on our team. Can't sit around and wait. Oh, naturally it will come about. Well, there's going to be natural leaders, but we got to intentionally create leaders throughout the whole program, not just people who step up, but everybody has to lead.
Right.
The third area we talk about support, and we have to have support. And support, it can be internal support. We have to have each other's backs on our teams. Doesn't mean we're always going to agree with each other, but we got to support each other and have each other's backs.
Exactly.
But also that support on the outside that helps us succeed. When you have a positive culture, what you have is great support from parents. Doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get along with every parent, but you're going to have great support from parents. Second is you're going to have good support from other entities at the school. When I go in, it's very interesting for me when I go into school and see who I'm working with, and if a dance drill team brings me in, who else is going to be there? And I love it when other teams are there because they understand the culture has been built around them to support each other. And then the fourth thing we talk about is coaches, directors have to intentionally coach. They have to intentionally coach character and culture. And I got to be a little careful on this because you'll never find a great team that's all about performance and not about culture, but you'll also never find a great team that's all about culture, not performance.
So true.
You have to balance those two. So we have to get really good at what we teach, but also really good at how we teach it and within the culture we want. Those are the four elements we believe lead to that positive culture.
So clear. And I love just how, it feels somewhat basic, but it's hard to implement, I feel like. And so powerful when you can get all those factors working together to build that culture.
I think a friend of mine, and a former basketball coach, after he heard this for a few years, he came and he said, that is basic. But he says, I think it's to the point that if we don't pay attention to it, we think it's happening. And then we look around and we see it's not.
Right.
And Bruce, one of my favorite statements from Bruce, my partner, is this: great teams do not implode. They fray a little bit at a time. And so if we're not careful and intentional, we're going to lose a little bit of this and a little bit of that. We have to stay within that intentionalism to make sure we're not losing and fraying. So
good. So good. Yeah. And that's a perfect lead into, warning signs of a team that is unhealthy. And what do you feel like are some of those warning signs that coaches and directors can look out for to just be like, oh, that's a red flag. We need to address that.
I think just a couple simple ones I'll throw out there. First of all, drama. Okay. Drama is a byproduct of something going on culturally, and it's an energy zapper. And so if we have a lot, now you may have that one person that creates drama. I'm talking about when you have incident after incident of drama that's just constantly, you're not dealing with what you want to be dealing with. You're always dealing with the external, not the internal, if that makes sense.
Yes.
The second thing is all teams have subgroups, especially think about some of the drill dance teams we deal with, large numbers, right? You're going to have subgroups. Subgroups are okay. Watch out for cliques.
Yes.
Subgroups come together, cliques go apart. So drama's number one, cliques is number two. But the third thing I think is something that maybe kind of come back that fray a little bit. We kind of lose focus. We start practice late, supposed to start at 4. We're starting about 4:20. Just kind of those little things that kind of impact our productivity on a day-to-day basis. Those are the three things that I think we got to watch out for as it walks through.
Right.
Another one I think you got to watch out for is talking behind each other's backs instead of to each other when you have a problem. Those would be the four things that I think we really need to pay attention to.
For sure. It's amazing the difference it makes when you go straight to that person if there's an issue, versus that going, around to everybody else. And just, I've seen so many things that are, negatives that come out of that versus people taking that responsibility to directly engage that person that they have a conflict with.
And it's not easy to do that. And we have to really work with our young people how to do that. In fact, we have to work with adults how to do that, okay, as it comes through. But as the saying goes, lying puts the problem in the future, the truth puts the problem in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And when we go up and we deal with it, we can start moving forward. If we're always doing it behind each other's backs, we're never moving forward.
Oof, yes, that is such good truth for everybody today. So one of the things that I feel like is key for our team culture is trust. And I know you've kind of already hit on this a little bit, but I'd love to dive deeper into it. So how do you feel like coaches and directors can intentionally develop or help their team develop trust?
That's one of my favorite presentations we do, the impact of trust.
Yes.
And it's in a booklet we have, and I'll at the end maybe share where you can pick up that booklet.
That'd be great.
But the 3 areas we talk about is, number one, you have to be professionally prepared.
Mm-hmm.
That's if you want to build trust within your team, you got to be professionally prepared. You're going to get tested the moment you step out there as a coach and a director. People want to know you know what you're talking about. So we have to be prepared, first of all, in our technique, but also we have to be prepared in how we deal with issues. We talk about, are we positive, demanding, or demeaning and embarrassing? How are we going to deal with those issues as they come up? So both of those come into play. Have we really worked on our preparation, dealing with the technique and dealing with the culture? Simple things like this sound simple, but you better be able to be great at it. How do you deal with a mistake?
Yeah.
Young people, if they trust you, are going to be willing to risk and make mistakes. Young people that don't trust you are not going to be willing to make a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to build that in our professional preparation. How do you deal with a mistake? The second thing we talk about is you have to personally care about them.
Yeah.
It's not just about them being a member on your team. It's about them as a person. We have to care about them. Okay. One of the great lines from my partner, again, Bruce, is this: we need to get to know the story of our kids, the athletes we're dealing with. Get to know who they are, what they're about, where they want to go, why they're part of the team, what kind of issues are they dealing with, what might impact how we coach them as we come through.
Right.
So professionally prepared, personally care. And the third one is we have to have purposeful, consistent character.
Mm-hmm.
We can't tell our young people to be poised in competition if we're not poised.
Ooh, yeah. It's so true.
We can't ask them to be on time if we're not on time. We can't ask them to give 100% if we're not giving 100%. So that purposeful character, our words and our action must align. That's our 3 components inside that booklet of how do you build trust, professionally prepare, personally care, and purposeful, consistent character.
Yes. There's just so much great power in understanding someone's story. And the more I felt that for sure as a director, the more I could find out about the student and, take a step back and try to see the big picture, things just were so much smoother. And there was just a greater sense of, like you said, trust and that deepening of the relationship there. And they're much more willing to work, and to give their best and give their all. And like you said, be willing to fail and make mistakes. That's so, so good. Yeah.
One thing that I heard Bruce say that I just love, okay, and obviously I refer back to him a lot, okay,
is so good.
One thing he said, which I loved, and I didn't do this as a younger coach because I didn't hear it, and I wish I would have. In the preseason parent meeting, he asked the parents, is there anything that your child's dealing with that would, if I knew, it would make me a better coach with your young person? Now think about that. He said, I learned things that I never would have known that impacted how I coached them, because the parent would write them down and say, this athlete is dealing with this right now. Well, if we don't know that story, we might not be able to get the best out of that athlete because we're going one direction, they're going in another.
Right.
That's a great idea.
That's such a good example of that. And I know you've got so many great practical, just like application to do with our teams. And is there any activity or exercise that comes to mind that would help build trust amongst team members as well?
Yeah, we don't get into kind of those little trust. I mean, a lot of people do, and they're good. We don't necessarily do those little, the fear fall or whatever they're called, things like that.
Right.
But I think one thing we do is we kind of get an assessment piece, and we kind of start talking about one thing I love to do with teams, especially teams I know that are in high end culture, and sit down and say, who are the 3 people on this team are the hardest workers? Who are the 3 most that are focused coming in? Who are the 3 most that do well academically? Who the 3? And, we have a series about 10 questions, 12 questions we ask him. But then what I love to do with that is then come up at the end and say, okay, let's share the positives there. Now, obviously, as a coach, I might be looking a little deeper for some other information in that assessment. I get that. But as a team builder, you know what it's like when you sit around and all of a sudden, Rob says, I just really trust Rachel because she's the hardest worker. She comes prepared every day for practice.
Yeah.
You watch people just sit up a little higher and a little, so that's one way. And I think another way is, as coaches, directors, we need to do a great job of acknowledging the unacknowledged. When you're on a large team and you got 50, 60 kids on your team, there's going to be days you walk in practice, go, I forgot that one was on my team.
Right.
They're quiet. They just don't, they do everything you ask them to do, but they're very quiet.
Exactly.
Okay? Learn to acknowledge those people. Find a way to make sure they know you've seen them and you acknowledge them. That builds them up and builds that trust.
Ooh, that's so good. Yes. And for coaches and directors that may be new, this is their first year working with this team, whether it's coming into an established program or maybe even they're starting a new program. Do you have any advice or first steps that they could take to really start to develop that intentional culture?
Yeah, one, you're not alone. Yes. Okay. Sometimes we feel like no one else is dealing with this. Everybody else has dealt with it. Everybody's gone through it. So with that, I think there's three practical ways is number one, find a mentor coach. And that coach might be in your sport, might not be in your sport. That's okay. If you got somebody at your school that is this unbelievable. At my high school, you know who that would have been? The FFA director.
Oh, yeah.
They had an unbelievable team at our school. Now, I was on a state championship football team with an unbelievable great coach, just a great coaching staff. But I also knew that team over there was a great coaching staff. Yes. Even though they weren't in athletics, they had a great team.
Right. Valuing what everyone is bringing to the table. Yeah.
Yeah. So find that person at your school you can go and share because they've been through it. You're not alone. They've been through it. Second is find a way to grow every day. We talked about the booklets. Yeah, read a booklet. But you know what? On the way to work, listen to a podcast. Do something that just gets you thinking that might help me on a day-to-day basis. Something that doesn't take a lot of your time. Yep. Then the third thing, and I think this is becoming more key all the time, protect yourself. And what I mean by that is, I mean protect your energy. Mm-hmm. No one understands that first few years, the energy it takes to coach, right? I mean, no one gets it. When everybody else is going home, you're ramping it up.
Exactly.
Or you came in at 4:35 in the morning when everybody else is coming in at 7. No one understands that energy. Make sure you're doing yourself a favor, getting your rest and taking a day off. You know what? Some days the best thing you can do for your team is take a day off.
Mm-hmm. So true.
For you and them.
Yeah. Just being able to read that situation and figure out what is the best thing today. Yeah.
That's right.
I remember hearing it's not so much about time management as it is about energy management. And that is huge every single day for
the great John Wooden's quote is activity does not mean achievement.
Ooh, yes. But also so good. That hits it home for sure. So thinking about just teamwork and students working together, what are some of the biggest challenges you've seen or noticed in student leaders? Because I know on dance and drill team, really in any team, it's kind of set up that way. We've got our officers that are student leaders, and that can be challenging to lead your peers, especially for those that maybe are juniors and they're leading seniors, right? So yeah, what are some of those challenges that you've noticed?
Well, first of all, is this. So many times people want the title and not the responsibility.
Yeah.
So make sure you choose the right people to be in the position of leadership. Mm-hmm. Okay, people that want to lead, not want a title. Second is make sure they understand what leadership is, and leaders aren't just duties to be assigned.
Right.
So many times, is in being on a football team. Oh, I'm leading stretching, and I'm calling the coin flip. That's not leadership. That's duties under the job of a leader. That's not leadership. Mm-hmm. What is leadership? Okay, so number one, pick the right person. Number two, make sure we understand what leadership is. Number three, don't overwhelm. And I think in today's world, and I'm not going to get into this today, but we hear this all the time. We don't have any leaders anymore. Well, I think we do, and I think we've hindered leadership, and I'm not going to get into that. Mm-hmm. But what I'm saying is, don't rely on one or two people to do all your leadership. spread it out a little bit. Okay.
Yeah.
So that maybe instead of trying to do 20 things, I can do 5 really well. They can do 5 really well. They can do 5 and they can do 5. Spread it out if you need to. That's not a bad thing at all as it comes to more of a leadership council, which drill does really well, right? Drill has more of the social and officers, and then your dance officers.
Right.
But the other one is educate them.
Mm-hmm.
Don't what one of the things that frustrates me is we don't have any leaders anymore. Well, what are you doing to create them?
Exactly. From day one, too.
If you're not doing anything to create them, do not complain about it.
Yeah.
So those would be just 4 quick avenues to team leadership that I'd work on.
Yeah, those are really great and just applicable as well. So I'm curious to hear a little bit more about your story and your journey as a coach. So, and even before that, actually, let's go back to when you were an athlete growing up in sports. How did your experience as an athlete really shape your perspective on life?
I think I was really blessed because I had unbelievable great coaches. And, I hear this all the time. I've never had a good coach. I feel sad for you. 1, and 2, are you really looking? That's the 2 things. 1, do you really know what a good coach is? Just because they got in your face and screamed at you doesn't make them a bad coach. Okay?
Right.
But I had these 3 coaches that were vastly different in high school. I played football, basketball, and tennis. And they all we were on winning teams in all of them. I was on very successful teams, coaches that truly wanted to win.
Mm-hmm.
But they did it in different ways, which gave me this unbelievable experience. Okay. I'll never forget my JV coach, who was the assistant on the varsity for me, Coach Gardy. He saw more in me than I saw in myself and pushed the heck out of me.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm blessed for that. Okay.
Right.
My varsity football and basketball coach, same guy, okay, Coach McCullen, he taught me you need to do these things if you're going to be successful. He really brought in the technique part of it for me. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And Coach Pauly, my tennis coach, okay, who wanted to win, made it so much fun. Okay.
Yeah.
We had so much fun. Okay. And so you combine that 3, and I walked out of this unbelievable high school experience. So I knew I want to be like them. Okay. My coach, then I played in college for an unbelievable, he's still a mentor. I get a chance to see him probably once every few months. Was with him last week, Coach Bachowitz, who kind of brought all 3 of those together. He took a young guy, he took a 6'3" football player who ended up playing over 100 college basketball games.
Yeah.
And got more out of me than I ever would have expected, and just allowed me, built me as a leader, and just really helped me. So my coaches that I had turned my experience into what I have today. And that's Coach Brown. We want to talk about Bruce. Okay. Mm-hmm. Bruce has made this. He's my coach. I'm 59 years old. I still have coaches in my life.
Yes. That's so good. Yeah.
My coaching experience, started in high school. Okay. And kind of the track and the basketball in high school, and then went into college as an assistant and then a head coach. And what I learned is, people who have never coached, and even athletes who play, we don't understand all that goes into coaching. Mm-hmm. And so for young coaches listening there today, I think one of the keys is just because you perform does not mean you know how to coach.
Correct. Yes. So true.
And just because you didn't perform doesn't mean you can't coach.
Right.
Right. And the intentionalism of where am I and who do I need to surround myself? And when I got lucky there was kind of the same thing I just already talked about. I had great mentors when I was coming through coaching, and allowed me to really weren't afraid to tell me, I think you're struggling in this area. Okay. You're really good in this area. But obviously I think the biggest blessing in coaching is the former players that are still in my life.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here, I'm up in northern Michigan at our cottage and just chilling for kind of a week to get away from a hectic summer and fall schedule. And 2 days ago, I'm sitting here and text comes through. 2 of my former players who played at different times got together to have dinner.
Oh, wow.
And they take a picture and send it to me.
That's so cool.
Hey, coach, we're meeting together. That's the paychecks you live for.
Yes.
Okay? That's just that's what you live for. And so it's the relationship based. So that's kind of my journey through this. And then when I went to work at the NAIA, we wanted to start a character program. But when they asked me to run this, the one thing I constantly said was, I don't want to talk about philosophy because coaches do not live in a philosophical world. They live in an application world.
Right. Right.
What can we do today that gets us better?
Mm-hmm.
That led me to Bruce.
Oh,
Okay.
cool.
And I had a friend tell me, you got to come hear this guy. He just finished his coaching career. He's talking about this. I think it's right up your alley. I went up, heard him. I called back my boss and said, I'm hiring him. I don't know if I have money, but I'm hiring him
Love
because
it.
he's everything. He brought together that application-based model into doing it on a performance and character-based ideology, or however you want to phrase
Right,
that,
right.
methodology. And that kind of put it all together for me. And so it's just been a great ride. Now you know what I do? I love it because
Yeah.
I just coach a different team every day. That's all I do.
That's so great. Yeah. That's awesome. I love that you're getting to, touch so many different lives and impact.
Still coaching,
Yeah,
just coach a different team.
exactly. Exactly. And I love what you were saying about, each coach brought something different to the table. And I think it can be really easy as a coach or a director to feel like you have to be like so-and-so, or fit this certain mold. But, do you want to speak to just the different leadership styles and sort of the freedom that there is in that?
And I think that's also important for a coach director to understand this. If I'm strong in this area and weak in this area, I better bring somebody along as my assistant or assistant director or somebody around me that's good in the area I'm weak in. I
Yes.
think too many
Yes.
times we hire people that look just like us. That does not help us. We need to hire people who complement our weaknesses.
Mm-hmm. And be able to walk in humility with that, I feel like, and just, self-evaluate
Own
where
it.
are we at.
I'm not good in that area. Yeah, own it.
Exactly. So good. So I would love to hear, how do you feel like coaches can leverage those just everyday moments for impact with their team? So, it's in between on a break or, in practice, those day-to-day things that are routine.
Well, first of all, be observant,
Mm-hmm.
right? And look for the little everyday things.
Yeah.
Okay. Second is you don't have to make everything a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Save great for great, save awesome for awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
If you say great every day, it's not great.
So true.
It's average.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But sometimes you need to tell the whole team, and sometimes you just need to let that person know you saw it. Okay. Pick your moments when you're going big and when you're going small, but let them know you've seen that. Hey, I saw you do that. I know you've been struggling with that. It was really good today. Well done.
Mm.
Sometimes it can be everybody. Sometimes it can just be that person. Okay. Pick your moments. Okay. And then try to always remember the best you can these things. Praise in public, criticize in private,
Mm-hmm.
if at all possible. Not always possible on athletic teams. I get that. In the middle of a game, I can't say, "Hey, let's go for a walk in the hallway."
Right.
We're going to have to do it publicly.
Uh-huh.
Okay. But the other thing is this: I think as we walk through, not just praise in public, criticize in private, but the other thing I really want to focus on, and I think this is really good with coaches, is understand what are your for sures and what you can live with.
Yeah.
Okay. When you have your for sures, these are the things we'll always do. Make sure you focus on those. And when they happen, capture it. Capture it. The other thing I would mention is this: sometimes you got to bring in other voices.
Yeah, that can be very powerful and key.
Yeah, very powerful to bring in the math teacher that everybody loves, or bring in somebody from the community, or sometimes, just anybody else that solves something, another team that comes in and says, we love the way you work. Whatever. I think other voices complement what you're doing.
Yes, that's so good. I think that's something that if everyone could implement that. I know sometimes budget is hard, but like you said, it could be a teacher in the school. It can be, one of the principals.
Yeah, it does. You don't have to always bring me in from the outside.
Right.
It can be somebody right there.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. Just those external voices that are coming in to help reinforce and validate. I love that so much. Typically on the podcast, it's mostly artists and probably other, teachers and directors that are listening. So I usually ask, is there something that you'd like to share with artists? But I'm going to switch that up for us today and just allow you to speak a word of encouragement, both to directors and coaches, and then one to students as well. So like a piece of encouragement or advice that you would want to give today.
Let me do this one for coaches. It's something I've been really working on lately myself.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think when I do this, I always feel good. Understand when to seek out advice and when to seek out wisdom.
Yeah.
Advice is generally people telling you how they would do it. Wisdom is taking a look at how you go about making your decision. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the biggest encouragements is for us as directors and coaches is to, one, seek wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
Number two is sometimes people don't need our advice, they need our wisdom.
Ooh, yeah, when you're
with
on
your
the
athletes.
other side of
Okay.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. Other side of it is don't always be so free with your advice. Share some wisdom with people once in a while instead of the advice as it comes through.
Good.
For the athlete, I think it's just this as I come through. What I want your experience to be as an athlete is this. At the end of your team experience, I want you to have no regrets.
Yeah.
When you get done, I don't want to say, if I only would have done this, if I only would have done that. No. Get to the bottom and say, I was as good as I could be. And when you get there, you don't have to worry about anything else because you've given it everything you could, and you'll be satisfied and accomplished what you did. And I hope it's raising some championship stuff and some medals and some trophies. But if it's not, you're still okay because you have no regrets.
Yes. So good. So good. I'm hoping that some students will hear this, and maybe if not, that their coaches or directors will help share that with them, and pass that wisdom and advice along. Wisdom and advice, that encouragement along. And I have kind of a quick follow-up question. As far as the mentorship aspect, what are some ways to get the most benefit out of that, like mentorship relationship? So, when you're looking for that wisdom from someone that's gone before you, I guess personally, how do you go into those situations? Do you kind of think through some questions ahead of time or anything like that,
Well, I think you nailed something I think is really good. You're talking about it, okay?
Yeah.
Is this too many times we go to the mentor when we're in the middle of a crisis or issue?
So true.
Make it more routine.
Yeah.
Okay, so that I'm reaching out and let them come in and watch you practice, watch you perform, and let them share their impressions with you. Don't always make that mentorship about, I need help. Okay.
Yes.
Make it about, you asked the question earlier about my journey. Ask them about their journey. You might pick something up along the way. Okay. Talk about, how do you get better? What do you listen to? How do you grow on a daily basis in what you do? So it's not just always about help me. It's about, man, how did you get to where you are?
Yes. That makes a whole lot of sense. I love, keeping it consistent, making it more about that relationship for sure. So one thing I love to ask everyone, when they come on the show, and this is just for fun, is what is one of your favorite things right now?
My favorite things right now. That's a good question. I think right now I'm just it's fall. So I just love walking and just listening to a podcast, walking in the woods, getting on my own, and solitude with a little bit of wisdom coming in to me, listening to something that can edify me and grow me as a person.
Yes, I love that. Do you guys have a lot of changing colors right now going on outside?
Yeah, I'm from Kansas City, but I'm in northern Michigan, and we just went through the best weekend ever. 65 degrees with unbelievable colors. And so it was just one of those inspirational weekends as you come through and you listen to it. Yes. And the other thing I'm into right now is naps.
Ooh,
I
yes.
do enjoy a good nap.
Those are perfect, and they seem to work hand in hand, I feel like. Get to enjoy nature and then come back and take a nap. That sounds really good. Nap.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you taking some time out of your getaway and just kind of recharge time to join us today for the podcast. This has been so helpful. And I feel like people are going to be able to take so many nuggets of wisdom with them into their work and into their, every day. So thank you for giving your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. And if I just may say, if you're interested in proactive coaching, you can go to proactivecoaching.info is our website.
Yes,
you can contact me at rob@proactivecoaching.info. And we could talk about materials or coming to speak at your school or whatever. Just willing to just share some ideas with you.
Yes, I definitely encourage everyone that's listening to check out Proactive Coaching and to get in touch with Rob. And are you working with Crowd Pleasers camps?
I am with Crowd Pleasers. Okay. We'll be again this summer at their officers and line camps. Yes.
Awesome. So those of y'all that are going to be at Crowd Pleasers, definitely say hey to Rob. And well, thank you so much, Rob. I really so grateful for just the impact that you've made. Like you said, this kind of explosion of focusing on leadership, character development, and dance and drill teams. And I think that you and Proactive Coaching have been a huge part of that. So thank you for just the investment and the time that you've given. I just want to honor you for the work that you've done and are continuing to do in our industry.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you and what you're doing, helping others.
was such a fun conversation with Rob. And I don't know about you, but I feel like I took away so many nuggets of wisdom that I can apply to my life. I encourage you to check out Proactive Coaching and to send Rob a note to thank him for being on the podcast today. You can find all of the links, the full show notes, and additional resources on our website, creativeimpactpodcast.com. I'm so excited for the rest of the lineup that we have for you guys for this Positive Team Culture series. And I'm super pumped that this is all leading up to the release of my new book, Healthy Relationships Equals Healthy Team. I am so excited to tell you guys more about it as we get closer to that launch date. If you're a dance teacher in Texas and will happen to be at TDEA this coming January, I would love to see you guys. I'm going to be presenting a couple of workshops, and I'll be in the exhibit hall as well. Next week, I'm joined by my former high school dance team director, Betsy Heathcock. It was such a joy to get to interview her for this series and just hear her heart that I got to experience when I was part of her team. I'm so excited for you guys to join us in that and to get to know her. If you're enjoying the podcast, I would be so honored if you'd share this show with a friend. That really is the best way to get the word out about this podcast. You can also help support the show by becoming a monthly Patreon supporter. If you're interested in bonus content, you can check out our Patreon community, where you get access to extra content as a thank you for monthly donations to support the show. You can check it out at creativeimpactpodcast.com/PATREON. Thank you so much for listening to the Creative Impact Podcast. The music for the show was produced by Michael Cash. Until next time, remember that you were designed to create. You were made to inspire. Continue living with purpose and making an impact. I'll see you next week for part 3 of our Positive Team Culture series with Betsy Heathcock. Have a great week, friends.